People often describe me as a positive person, and I suppose I am. I wouldn't be in this line of work if I wasn't. Now, whether that's genetics or DNA, I don't know. For me, I think it comes down to the decision I make to be happy, to be positive, to look after my own well-being. And in this short video, I'm going to share with you a few tips for how you can manage your own state, for how you can combat negativity and just feel a little bit more positive. Before we get into the tips, the 5 tips I'm going to share with you, there is one underlying assumption. And that assumption, that belief is that I am 100% responsible for how I feel. I am responsible for my happiness. I am responsible for my attitude. I am responsible for my well-being. It is no one else's job to make me feel happy. The first place I look is in the mirror, and the book starts here. Sometimes before we can work on feeling more positive, we have to get up to neutral. We have to move out of negativity to get to neutral before we can move into a more positive state. So these first few tips I'm going to share with you are about really combating negativity. So tip number 1 is to watch less news. If we think about what news programs are, they are prisms of concentrated negativity. And I care too much about my own well-being and state of mind, to outsource it to a news editor. For every act of terrorism that gets 24-hour news coverage, there are millions of acts of kindness that we hear nothing about. Now, I'm not talking about, that old adage of ignorance is bliss. I don't believe in that at all. I stay informed, I stay up to date with current affairs, but I do so under my terms, primarily done through apps on my phone, where I read the news as I wish to read it, or through some weekend newspapers. So I stay informed. News nowadays is not just about giving facts and information, it's also about sensationalism and peddling emotions, and I'm not particularly interested in that. I value my own well-being too much. The second tip, which is related to the first one, is around being cautious around who we spend time with. I always believe that everyone is doing their best, but unfortunately some people are in the habit of moaning about anything. It's almost like they're only happy when they're moaning. I think in Ireland in particular, we're great at building rapport with people, getting on the same wavelength as people, but often we do that in a negative way. We're giving out about the weather or politics or the state of the economy, and we're finding common ground on a negative issue. When I'm interacting with people, I try to do it in a positive way. Equally, if you've got plans or goals or dreams or ambitions, be careful who you share them with, because some people will have your best interests at heart. Others, maybe through fear on their part, will want to bash your dreams. So just be careful around who you spend time with. My third tip is quite a deep one, and this is forgive and maybe forget. What do I mean by forgiveness? Well, if you're walking around with a chip on your shoulder, the only person hurting is you. If we're holding anger and resentment, it's a bit like drinking poison in the hope that it kills someone else. And sometimes we just have to stop drinking the poison. If we think about anger, all anger is an attempt to make someone else feel guilty, and it usually doesn't work. Now, I'm not in the business of, letting people off the hook. I'm a big fan of personal responsibility and taking ownership of issues. But sometimes we just have to look at, what do I need to let go of? Who do I need to forgive? What do I need to forgive myself for? For me, forgiveness is route 1 to better feelings of well-being and even greater feelings of love. Those first few tips, I think, help us get to more of a neutral state, letting go of what we need to let go of, and now we can look at building on top of that. Tip number 4 is around practicing uncommon gratitude. Gratitude is something I speak about quite an amount. Gratitude for me is the antidote to fear, the antidote to anger, the antidote to negativity. You cannot feel grateful and angry at the same time. And whilst there may be many things in our lives that we wish were different, there are equally many things that we can be grateful for and perhaps take for granted. If you're listening to me, if you're watching this, you're grateful for your eyesight, for your hearing, for having a device to interact with people on. A great habit to get into is maybe when your head hits the pillow at night time to think about 2 or 3 things that you've been grateful for over the course of the day. For me, I think gratitude is a good solid foundation, because if we're grateful for what we have and we apply maybe law of attraction type thinking to it, it makes us open and helps us to receive more of what we want. Our final tip, bit of an unusual one, but if you're looking to feel more positive, what I found is one of the quickest ways of getting there is to take the focus away from yourself and look at how you can brighten someone else's day. You know, it is not your job to make someone else happy, but we can interact with people in perhaps a more open, positive, and honest way. That might be just exchanging pleasantries with someone, offering a listening ear to a friend who needs it, or even just smiling at a stranger as you pass by. It's the old adage of whatever you're looking for, if you give it away, it comes back to you tenfold, and that has certainly been my experience. So I hope these few tips have been of benefit to you. You know, as I said at the outset, being more positive, being happy starts with making the decision to be positive and to be happy. And, you know, I have my bad days too. Thankfully, they're the exception rather than the rule. But if I'm feeling a bit low or a bit down, you know, maybe I just acknowledge it, that's okay. But I do have some practices, I do have some routines that I can then apply to help me feel better. And really, that's all any of us want. We want to feel as good as we can, as frequently as we can.